What's up everyone, and welcome back to Mindfulness and Money. This version is for artists, and today we are joined back as always with Laura. Everyone in our community knows her well, and she's also an artist and co-founder of Queer Collective. And then we are joined by Joel. Joel wears many hats in the industry. He is a music supervisor and a licensing coordinator during the day, and then he's also an entrepreneur who started a licensing and sync company of his own, 5-Pin Music. That's what it's called. And you also started a festival, which is amazing, Aurora Palooza. And now you've gone down the rabbit hole on blockchain, NFT, specifically through the lens of being an artist and a musician. And so that's why we really wanted to sit down and have you both here today, is to have a conversation and put on our musician sort of lens and focus when we talk about Web3, NFT, how it's disrupting the creative economy, the opportunities for artists, and in particular, music artists. First of all, just so we can kind of ground into this whole space here, how the heck did you get so interested in this? Where did that come from, that curiosity?
Yeah, it actually started about a year and a half ago when I started to learn about tokenization of music rights, because I'm kind of in the publishing world in music, and I learned how you can tokenize rights on the blockchain and how you can kind of expedite the process of these different royalty distributions and things like that by tokenizing them, and how you can kind of cut out the label. So I took a course on blockchain technology, and I just kind of dove into the crypto space and kind of evolved into the music space as it came.
For those that are watching right now, I want to make sure that everyone feels comfortable that we're going to be taking it slow here, breaking down some of the concepts. I'm kind of already lost even right now with the tokenized piece. So maybe you can explain that as a beginning of just kind of breaking down, because I know you're in the space. So you're thinking about licensing, you're thinking about those pieces all the time in your career. But what does that really mean when you say that we can tokenize something on the blockchain?
How the music industry kind of works with royalties is you have to go through PROs, and PROs are performance rights organizations. And essentially in each country, there's different silos that organize this data. So in Canada, there's SOCAN, and there's CMRRA, and there's Resound. How I learned about it is, instead of having all these different distributions of these royalties in each country, on the blockchain, something that lives forever. It's a distributed ledger that is permanent, and you can't really edit it or change it. So it's kind of like a global network of a ledger. So in order to have this data on the blockchain, it would be kind of this decentralized ledger that can go no matter where you are in the world. So that's kind of what really piqued my interest in cutting this out, because being in the publishing world, I've learned how inefficient kind of royalty distribution has been. I've been music supervising movies for a couple of years, and when it comes to artists getting paid for that sync, it takes up to a year sometimes to get that money. And even on Spotify, it's like 3 to 6 months to get streaming royalties and stuff like that. So it's like, why is that okay in the music industry? Like in any other industry, it'd be so unacceptable to wait 6 months, 12 months to get paid for your work, right?
Yeah.
So how smart contracts work on the blockchain is essentially it's instantaneous payments that go directly from user to the creator, and you don't need middlemen to kind of go through the administration and the distribution and all that kind of stuff. It's just a piece of code that automatically pays the creators for their work.
Because every single transaction is tracked and can't be deleted or erased, it's completely transparent.
Exactly.
So it really is empowering for an artist to be able to not only get paid quickly, but also to really be able to see the process and see exactly where it's going.
Exactly.
I think that there's a lot that's happening in terms of, thinking about how an artist gets recognized. And years ago, decades ago, the label did play a pretty big role in putting a lot of funding behind an artist early on. These are days before you would break on the internet or have a viral situation where someone could create something and just blow up. So you have an interesting take on this idea of going viral versus the super fan and talking about that kind of correlation. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, for sure. So basically how record labels have worked over history basically is they work as VCs. So they basically fund an artist and they give them a big signing bonus, but then that's recoupable. So the artist essentially owns the record label, all this money. So the whole idea is to make them viral and to reach as many fans and as big of a crowd as possible. but where I see NFTs going is, instead of trying to reach 1 million people that don't care that much about your music, they're kind of like passive fans, we can kind of target 100 or 1,000 of these what we call super fans, and we can monetize them. And it's a way more meaningful experience when you're connecting with your top fans in the world, instead of like trying to please 1 million fans that just kind of like have you on a playlist from here and there. So how that kind of works is you can release these NFTs, and your top 100, let's say, fans can invest in these NFTs, and that will give you the capital to grow your project. But now your super fans you can connect with, and you know who they are. There's a face on their wallet or whatever that you can connect with them directly. I feel like artists don't care as much about going viral as much as they kind of want to create a connection with the fans that actually care about them, and also give them like different perks that can kind of have direct communications. I always bring up the example, there's this DJ called Nudes, NVDES, and he released NFTs just a few months ago for the first time. And I bought his NFT. It was like a one of 3. This is a DJ that like has really resonated with me through like my young adolescence and stuff. But I bought one of his NFTs, and then he messaged me on Twitter personally.
That's so
and
cool.
Like that's such a meaningful experience to fans and to super fans, right?
So NFTs provide this extra kind of utility where something like that could happen, where you could get a personalized message. Laura, I just want to get your response as an artist. I know, in someone who's interested, I know you're not a musician, but as a dancer and as someone who's creating art and working with artists all the time, how does that make you feel in terms of this idea of people not wanting to necessarily go viral, but more curate something for those super fans?
It's very interesting to think about essentially having autonomy over your project and autonomy over your music, and who is listening to it and who you're connecting with. Like my sister told me recently, like Doja Cat sold a few NFTs, and then for her, like for example, if you bought like one of the top tier NFTs, you could like go to her concert. There's so many perks that can be involved with them, and it's definitely a cool way for fans to connect. But for the ones that are more up and coming, more local, that's where I start to sort of not get skeptical, but maybe a little bit worried. Currently, when it comes to NFTs, a lot of people are looking for some way to profit off of them as well. So is there a model where it could be both, or should we solely focus on fans connecting to the artist rather than also trying to profit from them?
So when you're supporting an upcoming artist, that's just patronage, right? Like you're giving them financial gain, and you're hoping that they blow up one day or whatever. But how smaller artists can really connect is, like you kind of touched on, was the utility of the NFT itself. So if you hold this digital asset, maybe you get unlimited concert tickets to their tour, or you get exclusive merch drops, or maybe you get access to this closed Discord that they give you unreleased music in. And that's where it kind of comes back to the actual connection with the fan from the artist. Now, I don't know if smaller artists are ready yet for this movement, because it's such a small niche. So if you have 100 fans as a small artist, there's probably 2 that are involved in this space, if you're lucky, right? So if you have a very small crowd to start with, and you're already making that circle smaller, I don't know if that makes sense yet. That's kind of what should come. But patronage is an interesting kind of topic in this sense, because so say this small artist releases 10 NFTs and they're trying to fund like studio time for their new album or something. If you have that digital ownership of one of these 10 tokens, and then in 5 years that's Billie Eilish, like that's gonna be worth a lot of money. So it comes back to the profit point as well. So I think that that's really important, is being able to not only show off that you supported this artist early, which is what I call proof of discovery, which is basically just like a clout thing. It's like, hey, I supported this artist way before they were big at all.
It's a collectible.
And it's like it's digital identity to like be able to prove that, right? So you get that kind of utility, but you also have the potential of the financial gain if that artist does blow up like you think they are. So it's kind of like betting on them to an extent, right?
True, yeah.
It's really interesting, because I know we're saying that emerging artists right now, it's kind of difficult to navigate the space. The space is still small, but it is that being on that sort of pointy edge of progress as an artist, and starting to realize how to educate your fans and bring people into the space, because it is so cool. There's so much opportunity. And even if you had 100 fans and 2 of them were the ones that purchased something and got to come backstage or whatever it is, that word of mouth and people, Instagramming that or whatever else, and then being able to ends up creating a ripple effect. So it's interesting for the emerging artists that are watching right now to kind of take it in, because maybe you could start something new or different.
From my experience working with musicians in particular, what I notice is that a lot of them are not even ready for the concept of the technology itself, let alone to, for example, create an NFT. Like I had a small little poll on my Instagram story with the previous NFT episode that we did, just wondering, like, do you think NFTs are the future? The option was yes, or what the heck is that? And majority was just like, I have no clue what that is. Like, so for me, it's kind of like a worry, the same worry that we get with like record labels, the same worry that we get with, like, for example, Spotify. Smaller artists just like are hardly recognized. Like, do you see a path for them becoming bigger with this technology if we are, for example, either bypassing record labels or somehow incorporating them, but in a new way?
Yeah, so I think that the most important thing there is that nobody knows or cares to know what an NFT is. So what you can kind of unpack there is just avoid the word NFT by all means. And that's what I'm a big believer in, is kind of keeping it under the hood. Like, never say crypto, never say NFTs, say this is a limited access fan club or something that carries these utilities. You might have different tiers, but you get these perks by having this, and you can also sell this membership when you're done with it. So you can use these perks, you can get those backstage tickets, you can get all access to the stuff we just talked about, but then you can sell it afterwards. And then maybe when they go the next step, being like, how the hell is that going to happen? That's when you say, well, we're using the technology of non-fungible tokens. And I think keeping it under the hood is very important, because people are scared of crypto because there's the volatility and all this stuff in the media about how bad crypto is for environmental reasons. Like, there's a lot that they need to work on. There's a lot of valid criticism about it. But I think that using the technology without saying these scary terms that people are so afraid of is one of the most important things, at least at this point.
It is something that I think no matter what, it's not going away, and that's why we're here, is to really help people feel comfortable. You don't have to even know what an NFT means to be, watching this right now, but it is, for our perspective, we really do want to think about the smaller artists. We want to think about the folks that are just trying to make their start and how they could actually capitalize on some of this opportunity. So let's talk a little bit about the music label industry. You have some strong feelings about what that's done to artists, and you think that NFTs and Web3 could be a part of that evolution. So talk to us a little bit, break down what your thoughts are and your feelings are about the current status and state of things, and how these technologies could actually support some transformation.
Labels have essentially just been venture capitalist funds for quite some time now. And in that sense, I say, like, they'll invest in 100 artists and hope that 2 of them make it to pay for the rest. And when they do this, what happens is they take all of the master rights and usually some of the publishing rights to all of these artists. So 98 of those 100 artists are left with their music on the shelf and no control over it, and they can't do anything about it. And really the only thing that the record labels are providing is money, but also access to a team. But when you're a part of that 98% that doesn't make it, it makes it really hard to have freedom as an artist. So the way that I can maybe see it going, it's you can offer these NFTs as a part of patronage with your fan base, and the money that you can raise from these NFTs can fund your projects, but can also have a community of people come together and be what that label would typically achieve for you. So you can have a marketing team being a part of it that own this, like, it's almost like a stake in a company. If you're a big artist and you release 10,000 NFTs, you now have 10,000 people in your community, and maybe the more NFTs that they own, that gives them governance, and it kind of helps them direct what goes on and makes decisions of what kind of happens. So that being said, that leaves a lot of responsibility just to the artist, right? Because now you're basically a CEO of a company. It's kind of interesting to, like, take it away from the label and then kind of decentralize this power to your fans, where they can actually dictate what happens in your career and the decisions you might make and the people you might network with. And it's definitely possible. It's just we're really really far out from that happening.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense what you're saying. And we have constantly been advocating for artists saying you are entrepreneurs, whether you're doing this route and you're, creating NFTs and you're creating your own basically organization and community of people and supports. Even without that, you are an entrepreneur. And I think a lot of the times artists feel worried or scared about the business side and feel like they're just there to be the creator. It's been part of the programming that artists have accepted. And so this we have to break out of, because whether you're going the traditional route or you're going to go into this new world, the truth is that we need to have some of these skills so that there's no blind spots and we can actually advocate for our art in the best way possible. And only you can do that when it's you that made it.
Artists, I feel, would be either very scared of this technology and NFTs and this concept of autonomy, or they would be really excited. I think it might come down potentially to just how much you value your art, because even when you just want to make art and you don't want to have to worry about the business side of it, I think it comes down to, or it will come down to, well, because I love my art so much, I have to learn the business side of it. You kind of have to become a business person. And I think that's something that's been lacking by design, in my opinion, in the music industry for a long time. Because if that's the thing that's the most important to you, then that's kind of all you have. And if you're willing to just like give it away.
Yeah.
A concern for me, however, when it comes to NFTs, let's say that you are a big artist and you put out 10,000 NFTs. And let's take the example that the more NFTs that you own, the more governance you have over that. My worry there is, just depending on the model, is what would stop a record label from just buying a majority and then still having control over what you produce or where you do concerts. It's very exciting, and I'm very much pro NFTs, Web3, and crypto, but we do have to be careful about how we structure our projects as well.
Yeah, of course, and that's really up to the artist of what kind of power they give to their holders, and that's ultimately up to them too, because governance was one of the examples I brought up, but that's not very common necessarily. So like maybe this utility of holding this token that gets you access to different things, but at the end of the day, I don't see them giving full power to the fans, because like you said, they can just be bought out by people that have a ton of money, and then all of a sudden like one billionaire is running this guy's career or something, right? So it's really up to them, and it's completely customizable, because I can see that being an issue for sure.
But this kind of almost creates this third industry or this third layer of people who are committed to artists, but also understand the technology, understand how to structure these projects, maybe have some of those skills that aren't as recognized in some artists, or they don't recognize them in themselves, but they want to be able to figure this out. So someone like yourself could come in as a consultant of some kind and be able to help bands and organizations figure it out for the first time. There is always ancillary people to every industry and artists, and we see it now with managers and whatever else, but this is a different new opportunity for people that are interested in technology, interested in the new economy, and want to be in the creative space supporting artists. Right now, for NFTs to be considered valuable, it's a lot about the reputation of the artist. How do they build that reputation or that trustability amongst people who want to invest? Yeah,
well, that's really the beauty of the blockchain, is because everything is permanent and everything's transparent, and you can see every little thing that happens. You can monitor their wallet to see if these funds are going towards certain initiatives. Your digital reputation, there's no delete button in Web3 really. So your reputation is completely on the line, and you have to live up to what you're gonna say you're gonna do and what you're gonna do with the money that you receive from your holders or your investors or what have you. But digital reputation is everything, and if you don't hold up to these promises, then you might get away with it once and you might make a ton of money one time, but when it comes to on-chain provenance and being able to prove things, then there's no avoiding that anymore, which I think is one of the great things about it.
So I just also want to back up though, in thinking about entrepreneurship in general, and right now we're talking about artists' entrepreneurship, mistakes happen. Things screw up, bands break up, people do things, that is the reality. I've made so many mistakes, and now this freaking ledger blockchain is going to show them all to everyone, and that's kind of overwhelming as well. Just that right there would be I'm out. So how do we bring like humanity to that? Is there a way that artists could like pool together or have more of a community focus in starting out so that they're not just by themselves with the blockchain gonna show every little mistake that you ever made?
Yeah. Well, I think transparency is really key. And if you have good intentions, I think that humans will respond to that and that'll resonate with them. So if things happen, like you said, bands might break up, and the way that I look at it is, since everything is so transparent, as long as you're being transparent with your intentions, I think that you can put those fires out as they come.
Well, for sure, and always having the right intention behind raising any kind of capital for anything, I think is so important. So for anyone that's, you know, listening, I think in the crypto world, there's a lot of people who are like, oh, get rich quick, or like, you know, there's like some kind of opportunity to just like snag in and snag out, and this isn't really it. I think this is a lasting trend that's going to continue to evolve our economy and evolve the industry over the next couple of decades. And like you said, that ledger is the ultimate keeper of transparency, you know, because everything is constantly there. So being able to evolve, even if you do make some changes in your first project, being able to talk about that, communicate why, and then showcase that you're willing to continue to try is what any investor looks for in a great business person or entrepreneur or artist.
What do you think should be like the place to start when it comes to NFTs, and if they just want to start learning about it and just starting to get involved?
As long as you follow the right people and you jump on Twitter Spaces, talk every once in a while, like Twitter Spaces is big in the Web3 community. I'd say there's under 1,000 artists in the world doing NFTs properly, which is like so small. Like you think about, like, there's 60,000 songs uploaded to Spotify every day. So think about how small that is. So if you start to follow the right people on Twitter, jump into Discords, ask questions, a lot of people are willing to help. You just like put it in your Twitter bio, like music NFTs. You'd be surprised how much feedback you get and how much engagement you get. So just participate and you will get rewarded. I can almost promise you that.
I think that that's a really good piece of advice, and we are definitely here to continue learning along with you all and our community about all of these new developments, because it's the new economy and we want to be prepared for that. We are so excited and grateful for you, Joel. And where can our listeners find you? Like, where can we check out you?
Twitter, Instagram. On Twitter, I'm the Joel with 3 L's at the end. And then Instagram, Joel Gouveia.
We'll link those in the show notes. And thank you for everyone who's tuning in right now. If you've got any more questions, please feel free to reach out to us. We're always here to support the community in learning and getting informed. So we'll be back next time.